Hello, and thank you for joining us in our series, A New Life. We have in our studio Rav Laitman. Hello, everyone. We have Ori Liv, a couple therapist, and a personal trainer. We're here to speak about our lives, the connections we have with the people around us, and how we can make this life better. Nitsa, please lead us into our subject today. So before we go into the subject today, maybe a short explanation about the slight variation we want to do in the format of the show, so things will be clear. So first of all, one of the principles that we want to emphasize is that we're talking to an audience that wants to make a change. An audience that is here because they have a desire, they're having a hard time, they want to improve the quality of their lives. And they come to training or therapy or something. We're not dealing with a lack of desire here, but a place where there's a very clear desire and need for change. That's the first principle. The second principle that we understood is to bring attitudes, professionals from different sectors, so we can build a process that will make it more sophisticated, bring a technique from the round table that will help a person enhance their communications with others. We understand that this is the most significant subject. If we manage to have good communication between us, if we had a good connection, then actually we would understand that all the things we are dealing with and all our problems, we would learn to get along with them in a different way. Maybe we would even prevent some in ahead if we had the correct communication. So I think this is a different perspective. So even if we bring cases, it's just to show the phenomenon, not for the case itself. So I want to go back to the question of individual communication. We understand it's very significant. There's many, many subjects here. One of the most significant ones is paying attention, listening. It's the basis for the beginning of communication. And in listening, at the level that we understand, we can see three different situations of paying attention. First, there's paying attention to yourself, your own thoughts, your own feelings, your urges. Attempting to understand what's going on there. The other is listening to others. I try to understand others' needs, desires, thoughts. I try to listen to him, and not just in words, also to feelings. Also to the interaction, the spirit between us. And there's wider listening, and then we call it global. It has many other elements inside, energies. But I think that's a bit far off, and we haven't reached there yet. We want to focus on paying attention and learn a bit about that place of listening to people. That in order to listen to people, we have to acquire a certain attribute that we call it empathy. Empathy is emotionally identifying. I have to actually feel the other side. It's not enough to just listen to his words, because research shows that only 10% of communication is verbal. 30% is in intonation, the sounds, and 60% is in the energy, everything around it. So a person to really pay attention to the other has to develop himself. That's a very significant point. Now, why are we talking about all this thing? Because we already understand from the round table that it's based on the subject of communication. Puts down two sides or more and wants to develop the subject of paying attention and communication. So now from your perspective, in addition to the tools we already have. How do we listen in the relationship between couples? The inner significance is simple, that each one understands that he sees not the world, himself. He sees himself in a true way, and then the world appears ruined. And out of this view, he understands that he has to rise above everything that he sees and try to build a connection with no regard for how a certain person or phenomena appears. He must try to go into this connection in the most objective, non-dependent manner with his own nature, without any previous opinion. That's what we need to show people, how much they can profit from that. That even though my first urges are to bend the whole world, in that way I see that I am not capable actually of doing anything. It won't help me. It's the weakness of my ego, that I can't deal with my ego, and I need to neutralize myself and really be a judge in a neutral way. And then in this way, to connect with the public. If I want to build a good connection with the public that will last for a long time, then it's desirable if the public will also rise above itself and connect with me in an objective manner. And to the extent that we won't be able to hold on to this level above our nature, each of us, but each of us will somehow forgive the other for sometimes falling, going up. In other words, we have to bring people to a stage where they each come to a level where they are riding above their natural urges. In other words, above their ego. These are very difficult things because this is our nature. Here we see the first question. We have to open proof that if he acts through his ego, it harms him. We have to provide him with support that if he works above his ego, he'll profit. We have to teach him how he's relating in a new way to people. He's inviting from them a response in accordance at the same level where they're both riding above their ego. Like we said previously, we go into compromising, rising above their ego, etc. They sacrifice. These things have to come with very strong proof because we're changing all the time. And that's why every moment we have to think, not every moment, every day, how we renew. Psychologists know all these things. That we have to all the time give another bit and another bit to each patient. We have to think how we hold people on a small fire where they're always receiving support to be above their ego, to compromise, to sacrifice himself, see others in this way, build himself an environment where everyone agrees with this attitude and everyone's trying. And then he has support from the environment. And then he checks himself against the environment. He sees, I went into my tummy a bit, I have to come up a bit. He will receive from the environment new values that will maintain him. He'll receive from the environment new examples of behavior. All these things we have to give him in a constant influence of the new education. Let's say we organized a round table for a couple. We would look how a person in their in their relationship of two people, how they start creating this discussion, how they start creating this better communication, meaning they really practice it, like you said. I come out of myself, I move my thoughts, I move my feelings, I put all my criticism and judgmental things aside, and I listen to the other side with my heart. Throughout many years, in our childhood and teens, we learned how to behave from other people. We see this on kids very clearly. They're watching us, and they do exactly what we do. They do the exact same. There's no way around it. That's how the child glues his entire environment to him. Here we have to give, let's say to a couple, an example. Very clear examples. Very effective for their change. Examples from people who are important to them. It can be huge media personas, movie stars, people important in the community, at work, it doesn't matter where. For a woman, it's what's happening with her friends, the behavior of the kids next door, of the family next door. If we organize an environment like that, where they will maintain each other, or we bring a failing family to this environment, where they talk about it, there's no question that there'll be a change. But we will need to each time renew things, because working against the ego is constant work. You mean each time the subject of the table has to change? The subject could be, we may choose it according to the case that we're dealing with. But people will always need to be in an environment that provides them with a good example, and also explain to them what is good and what is bad. Isn't there some mutual influence? Say if a family already arrived at the understanding that they have a problem, a communication problem, and they come to a group that can influence it positively. Does only the group influence them? Or is there also influence from what they're bringing to the group? No. Because the group is at a different level. It has protection. It's protected from all those influences. I'm talking about a group of a few couples, corrected couples. It can't be couples that start from the age of 0. It could be, but let's say we already have like a facility where we correct. But it will be a group of couples. We will need 3 or 4 couples that will come with all kinds of problems. They sit down in a circle, and along with them, there are 3 psychologists, let's say, are experts. Then we begin to open things up. Then we ask them each time, after we take an example from one of their behaviors or problem, we develop it, we open it, to see what's happening. We see the motivations. Afterwards, we're like, let's play it in a different way, in the new way, the corrected way. Let's see from the side how they play, what they need to do to arrive at it being the truth, what others feel that see this behavior from the side. What did those feel that played among us, ahead of us? They played the happy family. How did they make this theater for us? How they saw they have to sacrifice and cancel and bend down and let them talk, let them speak. What do we have to do so it will happen in our lives? And here in a mutual manner, where we open things up to discussion, but it's mainly through the exercises we do in the group that we watch from the side. These examples influence me. A person is influenced by others. Look what's happening. I don't know what percent we produce and sell. It's because they forced us we live to be like others. So let's learn to live the good life. Some of the things you said now, there's many courses in the market. Playback, theater groups. What are we and how are we different? We are different in the fact that we teach people how to rise above their ego and to try to be separated from their ego, to connect instead of with their own desire, with the desire of others. In partial manner, in a certain manner. And in that, I will certainly, if I'm capable of doing that in an easy way, let's say at work, the manager says to me, do this, this, and that. If I give up my ego and rise above it, I take everything he said to me easily, and even with love. I have to do the same things, but for my child, let's say, my baby. So it wouldn't be so hard for me to perform, because it's a stranger. It's suddenly difficult and impossible. Same thing here. There's a psychological problem. It's possible that I will work for the public. It could be my wife or my kids that I'm not devoted to, or kids in general, or at work, or maintaining the laws that society demands of me, police. If I could rise above my ego and feel their desire, if I would provide them like kids, then I wouldn't get divorced. I wouldn't be in fights at work. And I wouldn't be on a road where I want to run everyone over, etc., etc. I need to learn simple things. How to hold myself above my nature. Humanity's been thinking of this for many years. There's nothing specific, special, but there's a special method. This special method is creating an environment that is always obligating me to be that way. And the environment can be completely fake. It can be a theater. And now we're taking couples and building from them a new society. None of them are corrected, but we're pretending. This game of pretending, where we have a few couples against one couple each time, influences that couple. It's clear to us. The influence of the environment, that's what we need. So actually I see in one of the previous shows you spoke about that we're being like two balls, that each of us has to make room for the other. That's the example these couples give me. I understand on an intellectual level what you're saying, and we can perform it. But how does it deal with the emotion? I can understand it in my intellectually and not agree. But if they give me all kinds of examples in which I will participate emotionally, along with them, we'll play. Let's say we're talking. We're talking according to the discussion that they ordered. That suddenly, in the discussion, I have to rise above my ego. I have to get into unpleasant situations. They are purposely giving me exercises that I have no choice. It means heaviness of the heart. So, especially here, I have to receive support from them for love of the public, for the correct relations. And then each time that I receive examples from them, if they are people that I want to be connected to, if they are people I want to be in a connection with, I get strength from them, strength for changing, and it works. And I really change. Habit becomes second habit. I begin to get used to relating to everything like that everywhere, and I see it's worth it for me. My ego is profiting from it. My ego is profiting. It's called influencing in order, bestowing in order to receive. That it's worth it for me to do certain anti-egoistic acts in order to receive pleasure. What don't we do? We don't go to work. We don't do difficult things. We don't run around all day, at home and everywhere. It's not against our ego, it is. Yes, why? Because through this we profit. Same thing here. We need to sacrifice because we earn something from it. We have to show them that they earned something from it. That's what we didn't receive in our childhood. They said, be a good kid. Lots of words. An example I didn't receive. I saw everyone, treated everyone like crap. Give me an example of how a good, in a good relation, I profit from it. They say, you're a sucker. Then everything I wanted to be good is erased. So let's say a person that wants to come to a course like this that you suggested. He wants to come, but he doesn't want us to talk to him about the nature of man. He just wants to exercise. He just wants to play, to act. He has to act. But along with that, he has to understand what's happening here. He has to talk about it. Acting out of talking. We don't need to bring him like a lecture with the graphs and everything, charts. No, we're acting and we're pretending, and through that we are conveying a psychological conversation, self-clarification. It's called verifying. And after verifying, above it comes the correction. From the bad will come good. We're building all kinds of processes like that, workshops like that for couples. And say I'm imagining like there's an event of round tables. There's an event of round tables for couples. Each couple comes with a subject. Each can be a different subject. And actually we want to organize an event like this for couples where everyone goes through a personal process and there's also an environment. How do you see an event like this happening? It's the first time I'm seeing it in front of me. Help us organize it properly. There's a problem. Around the round table, there's 10 different people. Each has a problem with the others. They have to say they have a problem with themselves. When they're sitting couple, like 5 couples, it's 5 couples. Each has a personal problem between them. And a problem with the others accepting their opinion, etc. And the problem is even more complicated to accept their opinion toward the woman, toward the man in the same couple. So there are many, many, many connections in this complicated system. And therefore, in advance, we have to make a program, I would say very managed, because otherwise they'll lose themselves, because no one is the same as the other. If toward the person we're talking about his ego, in every couple, because they're already a couple, there's already a system of 2. It is impossible to compare each to the other or a couple to another couple. There are additional problems here, many additional problems. But what do we start from? Like with the round table, we say, now we're not talking about the gaps between us, we're talking about what we have in common. Here, this is the same thing. Inside the couples and between the couples. What can be in common between us? That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about how we connect between the couples all together. We're not coming to a society where all the couples start mixing between them. We're coming that what we want from them, that they'll learn, is how each couple in itself rises above their ego and connects. Like say you're a couple, you are connecting above yourselves, not in your ego, but above the ego, you and him. That's what we want. We don't want this couple to connect with that couple. There's no such thing. Only as an example you can see these other things. There's a round table, if it's even possible to say, that is actually built from couples, that each couple is rising above itself and becoming united. And when they reach a connection, then you can talk about a system where they connect between them, where each couple is one. It's not couple, they became one. And then we don't have 5 couples, we have 5 units. So let's throw out 4 couples and make a round table for 1 couple. Because you say you have to neutralize things, so let's get rid of them. Maybe we'll just learn the process of rising each. You said inside the 5, each has to rise above and they have to meet. So maybe so we don't get mixed up, we'll leave the 4 couples out of it and just leave 1 couple. How do they reach this state? Even if they understood it from a psychologist, they won't change. They need to get input from the environment to change. That's the problem. I can come to her for therapy my whole life. You agree? It's the way you make a living. I agree because I don't understand that there's no point from the beginning. Why? Because for me, she isn't an environment. She doesn't obligate me. She can talk to me, I'll be relaxed, I'll get all kinds of tips, but at the end of the day, it won't change my life. Life changes if I go into an environment that influences me. In nature, we are built in this way that environment changes us. There's no way around it. So let's go back to the table with 5 couples. Okay, so let's leave the 5 couples. I need from the 5 couples for them to influence on that 1 couple and everyone on everyone by giving an example of rising above themselves. Then they rise above themselves because her mother lives with them at home. She's old. She can't be without her mother. She's all the years with her mother. The other couple that watches football every night. The other couple like my daughter. She's always with her doctorate or biology. She's at home, at work. She's always into her profession. It's a problem for a woman. Another couple, the kids are always fighting, and the father's on the boy's side and the mother's on the girl's side, and more examples. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares who's right and who's wrong. We're not going in like psychologists to all these things. It's not important to us. We're not going to connect between them. Not at the egoistic level to connect or open these things. It just won't. There's no need. It doesn't bring any good result. We need to teach them how to rise above the ego. Know that inside the ego you're buried. How do we do it? Here's an example. Through example. I don't understand. We're at the table. Who gives who? We talk about mutual sacrifice. That we have to raise an animal. What's love? An animal that grows from sacrifice. That's it. A connection. Love is a connection. So who's giving the example? Couples to couples. Of how we sacrifice in our homes? Yes, it doesn't matter what the argument is about. The problems aren't the issue. It's not important. I don't care about their life. What could there possibly be there? Maybe it's a little bit different, but it's the same thing. It's one egoist with the other egoist in conflict. That's altogether the problems. You bring me a million problems. It's the same issue. So say me and my spouse, we managed to find 1% of sacrifice between us. We tell that to the other couples at the table. We're not corrected couples. We're not really sacrificing. We're regular people. So when I come to the table, I have to find that 1 gram of sacrifice. Each of us will bring our example. Where do we provide the example from? That's what I'm trying to understand. We supply the example from learning how to sacrifice. How I rise above my ego. how I begin to feel the other, that his desire is more important to me than my desire. How? How do I develop an ability for this? By talking about it, by the importance of sacrifice. How do we do it here? See the other one as bigger than me and see myself as small. See the other as small, that I can influence a good example on him, then I'm big. A good example. Not in my ego that I'm bigger than him. If I rise above my ego, I'm bigger than him. And if I'm bigger than him, then I take precisely his lacking instead of my lacking, and want to fill his lacking, and he, in a mutual way, does it toward me. Each can connect to the other under the condition that they take the other person's lacking and fill with all his abilities the other's lacking. And he does the same with me. And then we connect and are called a couple. Until then, it's not a couple. According to what are we a couple? That we sleep together? Excuse me, according to what? That's the animal level. Where are we in the relationship at the human level? How do we learn this from systems? That I need to connect between system and system. The connotation law, this bonding, this connection. That I go to connect with someone, I have to be sensitive to what's in him and to be prepared to provide what he needs from me. Otherwise, he won't accept it. And the other way, he has to do the same to me. And then we merge with one another. Like we said, two balls who merge in another, and each making up room in himself for the other. We spoke of this. Can you explain the dynamic when the process is between the couples, inside the couple, when it's inside, outside, so we can try to get a picture? We have a person who's an expert in scripts. I think you should do it with him. Could it be like a psychodrama where people play roles? Yes, it's possible. If I'm in the concept of mutual sacrifice, and I come to it from a very vulnerable place, I was insulted, I'm hurt. How do I rise above? And if I leave the insult outside of the place I have to rise to? Or I can talk about it in order to relax this painful place. If you're very, very stubborn and have contempt for everything and don't want to hear about any sacrifice, and you don't care about all this rubbish that people are doing here at the round table, and you're completely blocked, as if somebody tied you up with rope. You don't hear anything. You will still be impressed by an example. Examples will still impress you. The questions, to what extent will examples, you see them as belonging to you? There are many people that listen and don't hear. They theoretically hear. They hear wisdom, and they can talk about it to thousands of people. But like you hear it in the ear, it goes in their mouth and goes out, and that's it. And they remain the way they are. Here, precisely, there has to be the influence of this environment. Precisely here. that it works on us in such a way that we change despite our not wanting to. That's the influence of the environment. That is impossible to do if we're just watching a movie. If I'm just watching a movie, I can cry from the things that are happening on screen. And if I do it at home, I'm not aware. I'm not aware of it. Only on the condition that we are in a society and I submit myself to these examples, and through them I get such a special influence from the connection through this environment. So the group has to be very strong so I can depend on it. No, it doesn't have to be strong. It just has to be a group that truly desires connection, truly desires sacrifice. From the actors in the theater, as much as we see their pretty things, we never receive an example to rise above the ego. We can learn from all these actors and all these examples in the world how I take advantage of myself to take advantage of the world. How to work with the ego. Because there's no sacrifice. There's actors, they get paid salary, they tell us nice things, and in the next movie, bad things. Here, we get inspiration from the group, from examples from other couples, that is trying to rise above and come to unity. And therefore, they reflect on me the force of unity. In unity, there's a special force, this integral force that influences me. Only from the group, it can be two. Only from that, I receive the force of change. You need to understand that nothing will help bringing people from outside, psychologists, the actors and everything. It has to be very serious. A few couples. If you bring couples that just give examples, it has to be real, genuine. You'll feel that everyone will understand and go home, and nothing will change. Nothing. 1,000 times they'll show a fake example, nothing will change. They'll show an example, not fake, not pretty, not theater, nothing, but something that will have some sacrifice, an inclination to connect. There'll be the special power in there that will influence them. You said a group can be two. Another couple. Another. You mean two couples? Yes, one couple against the other. The couple itself can build a group among them, a man and woman? Yes. Yes, of course. But if they each agree to give the other an example, but where will they bring strength to give the other an example? If the first is like a group, to me it's hard. Where will he have the strength to unite? With what will he unite? There is a technique that he's uniting with me, but it's not enough. I still need an example, a wide example. Society, group is the environment. Let's say it's two couples. Two couples is enough. So where do they take the strength from? You said between us, one couple gives an example to the other couple. And apart from a visual example, they give them strength. They connect. A visual example will also have inner strength of unity. So it has to be a couple that's in something good. Yes, they have to be inclined that way. like in our group. So it's not possible that one person in the couple will give an example of good inclination to another? Yes. But it's still not in a group. It's a problem. It's possible, but much more difficult. Let's say that a couple like this went through a process with a few other couples. He comes to a stage where he has to be surrounded all the time. Yes, his ego is developing all the time and showing new forms. This inner work never ends. But does he have to always be in a constant connection with the group, with an external element? Maybe the connection can be renewed through some TV show, I don't know. It's possible. From my experience, when we take a course that's focused on a goal, and then you don't come back to meet with the same host and everything, there's an inclination for things to disintegrate. And then you have to go back to maintain things every once in a while. It's very significant. What do we need to have in a workshop like this? We're talking about a workshop. The minute there's two couples, it's a workshop. Even one couple is a workshop. A workshop is a physical act with an inner motivation. It can't be without the participation, talking. As far as I'm concerned, they can dance. You're going back to the place where they have to really experience. There has to be real acts, not just thinking. It has to be real acts in an environment, desirable a physical environment, not virtual, that makes the act. And in that way, envelopes the couple and changes them in that way. We talked about tightening the rope. Let's say a couple is interesting. The moment they want to go through a process, they want to get details about how quickly they'll feel the power of unity. Does it happen quickly, after? I think immediately. And I think the awe can be from the first moment they sit down, from the first meeting. But afterward, we need to develop it. Because each time it becomes habit. A person lives from news. He needs to feel renewal. Otherwise, only his ego will renew. So you mean you have to raise the level of connection? They need to know how to act, not each against the other, but each against their ego. A person has to be an actor. That's the true game of life. Is there something else? Or should we conclude this conversation? I think it's a beginning. I'd like to see how to build this game of life. How do we create something, a process that takes a person through stages? It's desirable to do this in the framework, in a wider framework maybe, with more people that are actually experts in building these kinds of events and think about how to do it. But for sure, to try it very easily. There's no shortage of couples close to us. And organize such a thing. It'd be interesting. Of course, if we are able to provide a good result, you won't be short of work. That's not what we're looking for. If the results are really special. Okay, so if that will conclude today, thank you, Rav Laitman. Thank you, Arito Lev, Nitza Mazos. Thank you for being with us. Until next time, all the best and goodbye.